Ladies and gentlemen, I think 1 year removed from the 2021 NHL Entry Draft, we have finally found ourselves the first real steal? I know it's been an absurdly short amount of time, and this kind of thing is never really going to set itself in stone until all of the players make their debuts and eventually retire, but when it comes to the 2021 draft, I really do feel like we're starting to see the constellations in the sky that are spelling out that word. Steal. The reason we're talking about constellations is because we're going over to the Dallas Stars, and we're talking about a guy they took in the 2021 draft, a player who was arguably one of the most interesting pickups by the Stars at 23rd overall, Wyatt Johnston. Now, the reason I say that Johnston was a pretty interesting pick at 23 was because if you go over to his draft projection, Elite Prospects had this guy at 54, FC had him at 50, Craig Button had him at 63, McKean's 55, Bob McKenzie 40, and that was the best ranking on there. NHL Central Scouting had Wyatt Johnson as their 16th ranked North American skater, which if you map it out is arguably in the 25 to maybe 35-ish range. And for Wyatt Johnson, the reason he was ranked so low is because in the guy's draft season, he didn't have a draft season. He played in the OHL for the Windsor Spitfires in 2019-20, so the year before he was draft eligible, putting up 30 points in 53 games. The season after, though, the OHL shut down, and unlike guys like Mason McTavish and Brant Clark, who had went overseas to play in Switzerland, you had some guys like Wyatt Johnston who ended up not going anywhere and just playing 7 games on the entire year for Team Canada at the World Under-18s, getting 4 points in 7 games in the process. This is the Dauber Scouting Report from Wyatt Johnston back in this time frame. It's really long, so I'm going to go ahead and pick and choose which parts to actually use here. Shout out to Tony Ferrari, by the way, who wrote this entire thing on this player back in April of 2021. Unfortunately for Johnston, like many OHL players, he has not played any competitive hockey since the OHL shut down. However, last season in 2019-20, when he had those 30 points, he found himself on a line with Jean-Luc Foudy and Willie Coyle, two 2020 draft prospects who had seen their seasons go a bit sideways. He seemed to unlock what was missing for much of the season with the 2 top 75 picks. The line became competitive on most shifts, and Johnson was very much the player who seemed to settle things down and get things moving in the right direction. He was an excellent outlet for defenders in offensive transitions, providing support along the wall, and he was able to be a bumper in the neutral zone for the high-flying Foudy to defer to if he was being closed in upon. Johnson may not have been the driver for that line, but he seemed to be the engine that made things run smoothly. His defensive game was also key to covering up teammates' deficiencies throughout the season, regardless of what line he was on. He was adept at putting himself in a position to cut off passes and thwart cycles in his own end, finding a way to get the puck onto his or a teammate's stick. Offensively, Wyatt Johnston's shot is the weapon that really seems to be what could make him a more dangerous offensive player. He doesn't have a booming release, but he shoots from dangerous spots on the ice and locates his shot well. It's a pretty nice scouting report for a guy that eventually went in the first round, but the season after, so after he takes a year off from playing hockey in the OHL because it's not there, in 2021-2022, Wyatt Johnston suits up for the Windsor Spitfires once again, and he gets 124 points in 68 games played, 46 goals, 78 assists. And this is the scouting report from then, earlier this year, written by Aaron Idovich. Johnson has continued to excel with the Spitfires. In 18 playoff games, he has 31 points, driving play on a fantastic line with Willie Coyle and Matt Maggio, slightly below his regular season point per game average of 1.824. He is also a plus 18 through the playoffs, indicative of his continuously improving defensive play. Having won both the OHL's point-scoring trophy and the OHL's most sportsmanlike player trophy, Johnson is further proving that he will more than likely be on the opening night roster in September. His head coach Mark Savard said in January, "I don't know what else he can do at this level." Savard also made comparisons of Johnson's play to Patrice Bergeron's elite defensive game. He also believes that Johnson could become an even better player than Bergeron. Not bad for a late first-round pick from less than a year ago. His elite IQ and vision continue to impress with his high-end puck-handling skills along the blue line, which allow him longer opportunities in the offensive zone, opportunities that often end with the puck in the back of the net. A player with a very few amount of glaring deficiencies, his pacing has room to improve, Johnson is a force at 5-on-5, the power play, the penalty kill, and his skill set will transition well to the NHL sooner rather than later. And that has been the case here, because Wyatt Johnson, as a 19-year-old guy, regular size, right-handed center that's brand new in the NHL, he's gone out there and he's played his 9 games, and he's got 4 points in the process. Not only has he been a third-line, defensively responsible, offensively productive guy, but you have yourselves so many Dallas Stars fans going out there and saying, hey, this guy's actually legit. There's no reason to send him back down to the OHL because he's already good enough to be a National Hockey League player. This is what was said by Peter DeBoer on playing his 9th game, so the last game that he's allowed to play before he gets sent down, if that's going to be the case. Peter DeBoer said, I might hide him in my trunk so Jim Nill can't find him. But then we had ourselves the news yesterday that apparently it sounds like Wyatt Johnson is indeed going to be staying with the Dallas Stars. He's made the team, he is here to stay, and this tweet from Saad Youssef kind of sums it up nicely. The Stars, Jim Nill and Peter DeBoer, they haven't been all too secretive in general about Wyatt Johnston staying on the Stars roster beyond 9 games. It's not surprising in the slightest, and it's something that anybody who has watched any Stars hockey could see coming. He belongs here. For a further look, we're going to go on to this article on DallasMagazine.com. It's actually D Magazine, but I don't know if typing DallasMagazine.com will lead you to the same page, but either way, it was written by Sean Shapiro, published a few days ago on the 27th, and it says, Wyatt Johnson is not going back to the minors. Here's why. It kind of goes over what we had talked about here in the article, but then there are some other quotes that I do feel are interesting enough to bring up. It talks about Wyatt Johnson in particular, and what exactly other scouts around the NHL are saying about this guy. Shapiro writes that he reached out to NHL scouts from other organizations to get their feelings on what the Stars are doing with Wyatt Johnson and their plan. While some led with caution, most felt that Johnson was the right player on the right path to playing in the NHL this season. My thing is always going to be, what role are they playing? An Eastern Conference scout said. If they're playing on the power play or PK and in the lineup regularly, then that's an easy decision. If you think they're going to be a candidate for all those roles in the season, if they come off from time to time, keep them up. I think the NHL practice time for a guy like that is actually more valuable than running all over the OHL or the WHL or the QMJHL, a Western Conference scout added. The fact that he's performing in games already, not just using practice as a benefit, to me, it makes sense he'll be in Dallas all season. That these stories, conversations, and debates are surfacing now in Stars media, right before Johnson plays his 9th game, so this article was published before then, is a testament to how well the organization kept its intentions under wraps. Johnston wasn't put on a pedestal. He was allowed to organically earn it. And when you consider how Johnson has broken the expected learning curve through 7 games, it feels like the Stars are playing with house money, because things aren't just going according to their informal plan, they're going even better. Beautiful article, by the way. Does a very good job at summarizing all the stuff that's going on with Wyatt Johnston and what led him to eventually being the Dallas Stars pickup that he has become, but the link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this. Of course, the link will also be to the Dopper page if you want to see all these scouting reports on Johnston as well. But either way, when it comes to the 2021 draft and you take a look at who else was drafted around Johnston in this spot, none of the other guys have NHL games, and none of the other guys are projected to be playing in the NHL for 22-23, unless you go up to Cole Sillinger at 12th overall. All the other guys in between Sillinger and Johnston, Coronado, Rosen, Kosa, Othman, Bolduc, Lucius, Svechkov, Wallstead, Liesel, Bourgault, none of these guys have played in the NHL yet, except for Wyatt Johnston. Now, if you go over to the second round, it's a little bit of a different story, because Yanis Moser is there. He was taken by Arizona, but he's an overage defenseman, so it's a little bit different. But when it comes to 2021 draftees showing off so well after getting selected, it's really difficult to go wrong with Johnston and his 120-something point freaking season, followed up by making the NHL at 19 years old after not having a draft year. This is ultimately what Cam Robinson said, and I think it summarizes everything very well. We'll end the video off here with this. I'll admit, I did not see Wyatt Johnston absolutely nuking the traditional development path. This guy didn't even have a draft-eligible season. 14 months later, and he's in the NHL as a 19-year-old. This scouting thing isn't all that easy. Talk in the comments your thoughts about Wyatt Johnston and the impression he's made so far. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99, and bye.